Killing Kennedy, the real story. Interesting, right? And Killing Lincoln, the real story. I have the author of both these books here in the studio, my good friend Steve Hager. Welcome, Steve Hager.
Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Great to have you on. And, well, let's see. Where should we begin? Well, here are two presidents, right? Both beloved, really, beloved presidents in American history for different reasons, 100 years apart from each other. Both came to similar ends in that they were both assassinated. And, of course, nowadays we're talking about, presidents, since then, many presidents have been shot. Some have been assassinated. Some have been terribly wounded. The president of the United States goes nowhere nowadays without a giant tank-like security vehicle and an army of security guys. They would never have a bubble-top limousine as they did in 1963 in Dallas, Texas, let alone the president sauntering on his own to the theater and sitting in a box without even a security guard present at the time. Steve, how did you come to write these books?
I was watching a movie on Netflix.
I have to just say, before I even ask you that question, I have to, for folks who don't know, you're the former editor of High Times Magazine. You're a well-known entrepreneur and a well-known advocate for medical marijuana and the legalization of marijuana.
Yeah, before marijuana, though, I was the downtown reporter. I did the first book on hip-hop. Mm-hmm. And then I did Art After Midnight, which was the story of Jean-Michel Basquiat and Keith Haring and that whole scene down there. And then I landed at High Times, and then I had a whole huge career, founded the Cannabis Club, did that stuff.
Right.
But then, after I got fired abruptly from High Times, I didn't know what to do. But I was just sitting home watching Netflix one day, and this movie by Robert Redford came on. It was called The Conspirator. Mm-hmm. And it was all about Mary Surratt, who had been hanged for the plot to kill Lincoln.
How many people were hanged for killing Lincoln?
4.
4 were
But
hanged.
actually, they found the entire Confederate superstructure guilty. They found they basically set it up that this was ordered from on top. So that, the people that they hung were people that were working on the plot, but it was a big plot, and it was a big plot. You know what I mean? But I was thinking, well, it seemed like the evidence against this woman was kind of shaky,
right. And
the people that testified against her didn't seem trustworthy to me, and they hung her immediately. Even the judges didn't think she was going to die.
Wasn't much in the way of appeals in those days.
No, they didn't. The judges had asked for leniency, but that had been removed when it was brought to the president, Andrew Johnson. So Johnson never saw that, hey, we should let this woman walk. But such a rush of judgment against her, kill her, and kill a couple other people. One of the people they hanged was really guilty. He attacked Secretary Seward, tried to kill him and failed. But the thing about it was, everything's online. Everything's at the Library of Congress. And this case was completely snowed under. It was investigated to death. Yeah. That's one thing about both these cases.
Kennedy and Lincoln.
They've been investigated to death. And it's all free. All this stuff is free to look at. So, 50, 100 years ago, it was very difficult to penetrate these plots because you had very incomplete information. And by the way, when they make it snow, the whole idea is to put out false leads so that people get caught up.
Make it snow, you call it?
Yeah. We're gonna investigate stuff that's not real and make it seem like it's real, and we're gonna bury this case. We're just gonna keep these details. It's like what you see with the Kennedy assassination today. Is every 3 years a new whistleblower comes out with some outrageous story.
There's over 1,000 books on the subject.
And they'll always start out with a grain of truth that's captures the whole research community, and they start to back this story. And then after a year or 2 years, there's a time bomb attached that blows up. They prove this guy's a fraud. The whole thing melts away. It goes to nothing.
Is that the link between the Kennedy and the Lincoln assassination?
Both of them were snowed with false leads.
Right.
So
fake news, we call it nowadays.
well, actually, Lincoln wasn't all that difficult. I spent about 6 months on Lincoln, and one of the conspirators that was inside the conspiracy gave a detailed confession immediately, as soon as he was captured. His name was George Atzerodt, and he talked and talked and talked. And they tried to destroy that confession, and they would not allow it into the trial. They wouldn't allow it as evidence.
Sure.
And then what they did was they put all four of these people, not Mary Surratt, but all three others, they had hoods designed. They had them moved, not in a prison, but they had them put on cells that would on Ironsides, on boats in the Potomac. So they have their own boat.
There would be nobody really.
And they had a leather and canvas bag that's tight all around the little hole to breathe. That's it. They can't see, they can't hear, and they're on a boat, and it's the middle of summer. It's suffocatingly hot in this metal boat, and for 2 months, you can't hear or see. Now, these guys went completely batty.
It was like torture. It seems like
it was torture, but it was also to make sure that these guys didn't say anything to anybody, and that nobody talked to them. So and it was to make them more pliable, because eventually they all lost their minds wearing this hood, but George especially lost his mind, and he was after that he just kept trying to confess. He would confess to anything they wanted.
Mm-hmm. Was it true, though? Was his confession a true confession?
The first one was completely true. And he mentioned all the people that were involved, and he mentioned that the instigators were in New York. Okay? So, after spending 6 months looking at this thing, I discovered what they don't tell you is John Wilkes Booth was a spook. He was a Confederate Secret Service agent. He was mostly smuggling quinine because it was illegal to trade quinine, and the South needed it bad
for malaria
for the troops. Yeah. So he was saving thousands of lives by smuggling this quinine, and then he was offered the gig. He was supposed to kidnap the president, and this was a big thing he was working on with Colonel John Mosby, head of they called him. I mean, he ran Maryland and Virginia.
Why would they want to kidnap?
They wanted
Lincoln?
to kidnap him, hold him for ransom. The war was almost over, and they were going to get all the prisoners of war out of the prisons in the North, and then they were going to reinvigorate the army with those troops. So they were going to hold Lincoln and say, "You want Lincoln? Give us back our men." Okay. So, but there were at least four probably double agents inside this conspiracy. See, this got so big. You know what I mean? So there were 100 people knew what was going on. So four of them were secret double agents for the North. So what they did was they changed the itinerary the day of the kidnapping. The kidnapping failed. But then a few weeks later, I think, then it became an assassination. And everything was cleared away. There's no guards. It's done with a one-shot Derringer. So, and by the way, Booth has the code to get across the bridge.
So you're saying this was not coincidental, that this was actually the result of a planned conspiracy from the very beginning, and there would seem to be...
The most likely scenario is that Jay Gould, who became the richest man in America through betting on battles in the war, had a secret conspiracy going with the War Department.
A robber baron. Somebody who
he
made money.
Became one of the biggest. In fact, he's famous for making the statement, "I have enough money, I can hire half the country to go fight the other half."
And that's because he made that money by basically selling defective arms to the...
No, that was J.P. Morgan.
Oh, J.P. Morgan.
Yeah, he had contracts that were enforceable despite the fact the weapons were useless.
I see.
So they had to buy all the weapons. But Gould was much more diabolical. He was betting on battles, big sums, and he's always winning. So the guys who controlled the codes were a guy named Thomas Eckert and Edwin Stanton, who was in charge. And Thomas Eckert would go on to become the head of Western Union. I mean, he was elevated into this role
I see.
by Gould. So the most likely scenario is that Gould is the guy in New York pulling the strings, but he's working with
On Wall Street, I imagine, right?
Well, yeah. Well, Wall Street became the finance capital of the country during the war. It started out, Philadelphia was the banking capital. That's where all the money was.
Sure.
But the people in New York, the shipping people in New York, who were
trading and
had
shipping,
close allies
the packet
with
lines,
the South.
right? The packet lines, right? But they were shipping from back
I
and forth
mean,
cotton. And things like that.
it's just fascinating to see all the evidence, too, that people don't even look at.
Right.
So, you know, my books are easy. They're fun to read. I like to put pictures in them and have it big type so that you're comfortable. And by the time you finish it,
Well, we'll show them. Yeah,
you'll have a very clear idea of how the number of lies that they've told.
Where can people get this book?
You can order it on Amazon.
Okay, great.
You know, and it's available as an ebook. In fact, you can get it in iTunes Bookstore, the Nook Store. It's on every platform as an ebook. But if you want the paperback,
It's self-published.
It's on
You publish it
Amazon.
yourself. You wrote and published it
I
yourself.
do all my own publishing now. I don't work for anybody. I
Right.
found that's the only way I can really be myself. You know, I don't want to deal with anybody
Okay,
telling
great.
me, "Oh, you can't write that."
You can write whatever you want. Good idea. So,
But
great.
this one,
Yeah, let's move ahead to the
we
next.
should move to this one because
Yeah.
this one is actually
Right.
selling.
Right, great. Because, well, it's funny. I would think that because we were talking earlier that, what is it, Rush or the other guy who wrote the Killing Lincoln?
After I wrote my Lincoln book, then somebody said, "Well, you must have read Rush Limbaugh's book." I said, "No, I
not
didn't
Rush,
even
it's
know."
the other guy. I thought
Bill Riley.
Bill O'Reilly.
I was like, "No, I didn't
right.
even know."
Bill
So then I
O'Reilly.
checked out Bill O'Reilly's book, and it's just the same bullshit story. Oh, Booth's insane. He's not like Booth is Johnny Depp meets James Bond. You know, he's a matinee idol. Women are swooning as he walks down
O'Reilly
the streets.
says that it was just a lone gunman.
Yeah, basically he's nuts.
With
you know
a
what
few
I mean?
other
They don't
people.
even explain. He's a captain in the Confederate Secret Service.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's got all these people working for him. You know what I mean? It's like he's not,
Right.
you know, just some idiot.
Has he also has O'Reilly done a book about Kennedy?
Yes, he did Kennedy, and
What
of
does
course
he say there?
Lee Harvey Oswald as well, Lone Assassin.
It's just like Posner's book, right? Similar to
Yes,
Gerald
same
Posner.
bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, the thing
But
about
there's 1,000 books on the other side against that one that say there was a conspiracy and millions of people who believe there's a conspiracy, including Hollywood movies. But interesting, Steve Hager, you have a view that a lot of those books are not in themselves correct.
Yeah, I'd say 90% of the books are either just total phony baloney wacko bullshit, intentionally though. You know what I mean? That's part of the snow. And then the rest of them are all trying to uphold the Warren Commission. So there's very, very little out there that hasn't been contaminated in some way. And the thicker the book gets, the more snow you're dealing with. It's like, you know, it's not this complicated.
Are we letting people in? Are we giving, is this a spoiler alert?
The spoilers are right there on both books. You'll see the culprits right there standing in the shadows.
And who are those people?
I actually
Point to each one.
identify them all.
James Jesus Angleton, I know him up there.
Yes,
right?
yes.
That's
Well, this is
famous
Alan
CIA.
Dulles. This is he was in charge of James Angleton, who was in
Right.
charge of counterintelligence. This is Theodore Shackley, Ted Shackley, the blonde ghost.
Right.
He
Involved with
ran
Iran Contra.
He ran JM Wave before Iran Contra. Which is the biggest CIA station in the world outside Langley.
Okay.
He's got 2,200 mercenaries on his payroll and 200 CIA.
He's dead now, though. He
agents.
died. He's not around. He's an old guy.
This was the guy who put him in charge of JM Wave. His name's Bill Harvey.
Okay.
And
Another CIA.
Bill Harvey is a candidate for a shooter too.
Oh, to be
Yeah, because of that bald spot on his head. And this is David Morales. He's from JM Wave. These guys are all connected very closely.
Now, are these 5 people you say they were actually the gunmen who were there, or was there
Could be. Definitely.
You don't think it was one gun, right? One gunman
No, I think there was 4. I think there was 4 shooters.
in Dallas.
Yeah.
Have you been to Dallas?
Yeah, but I'd never been to the book depository. I should go.
Yeah, I've been there. I stood in the middle of the street. It was interesting, and I didn't go upstairs to the library, to the museum, but I walked around. They have a lot of things you can see, and it's interesting. It's full to this day. I mean, there's people there all the time hawking stuff. And
Yeah, the guy who runs that museum started out as a critic and
Yeah.
then switched sides when he started the museum.
Oh, really?
So now he's, Oswald did it alone.
Okay.
It's funny. See, a lot of people did that. They early on, they became
I see.
researchers. They put out a certain line, then they're like, oh, no, Oswald acted alone, which is an absurd story. So, but you think of all the people that have supported that story. Even Norman Mailer wrote a huge book
About Oswald.
Oswald that did it alone. It's like, how could Norman Mailer be so dumb, not to figure this stuff out?
Well, what do you think about the movie JFK and the folks who were involved? All the Garrison and Mark
Garrison
Lane
was
and
Garrison.
the Ferris angle and all of that stuff that came out of the movie.
I think
the
Garrison
Cuban
tried.
right-wingers and the mafia working with the CIA to get revenge for Bay of Pigs, basically.
Garrison tried, and he was on the right track, and he was following the right trails, but they were killing the people faster than he could get them deposed. You know what I mean?
Okay, right.
Really, they were.
Killing the witnesses.
So I mean, Garrison knew that it was a CIA operation, but he got no help. He couldn't subpoena anybody outside the state. He couldn't.
You think that guy Clay Shaw was involved? I mean, a lot of people
Clay
say
Shaw
that
was definitely
that was just
involved.
an anti-homosexual.
I'll tell you, this guy,
Yeah.
Bill Harvey,
Sure.
was they closed down. They stopped funding his operation, which meant JM Wave 2. They
Right.
closed down the whole after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy shut down the sabotage, the raids. Now he was working with Johnny Roselli to kill Castro.
A mafia guy, the New Orleans mafia, right?
No, Johnny Roselli was one of the gunmen for the Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago, and so he rose to be the top hitman in Chicago. And then they moved him to Las Vegas to run Las Vegas for him, and then they moved him to Nevada, and he was the guy in Nevada.
Guy, right.
So
Right. Who was the New Orleans guy? It was
Carlos Marcello was the guy.
right, and then in Miami was the other guy.
Santos Traficante.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But the mob was used because they like to use them as a backstop. Oh, the mob did it. So you saw we had a whole ton of books come out.
Yeah.
Oh, the mob did it. The mob did it. Well, no. Or they tell you that the Texas oil barons did it.
That was the movie. That was the first movie that got me interested in it when I saw that movie.
But Mark Lane was a total
Executive Action.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an ancient movie, but that got me into it. And
but it's salted with those time bombs.
It's very
Mark
different.
Lane was a former OSS spy.
Right.
He
Who was
came
Mark
in
Lane?
to
Tell people who might not know who Mark Lane was.
After the assassination, Mark Lane showed up and offered to represent Marina Oswald pro bono.
That's his wife, Oswald's wife.
Yeah, now Oswald's dead.
Yeah.
And while Oswald was alive,
His
Clay
widow.
Shaw tried to send a New Orleans attorney to go represent. I think his name was Dana something. Clay Shaw tried to get a lawyer because Oswald asked for a lawyer. I said, I wish an attorney would come forward to represent me. So
Bill Kunstler told me he was on the plane, and he got on the plane to represent Lee Harvey Oswald. And when he got off the plane, he was dead, and he immediately went and represented Jack Ruby.
Oh, I didn't know Kunstler
Yes,
was
Kunstler told me that.
Well,
He was the first attorney to
If
represent.
Kunstler
Ruby.
was representing Jack Ruby, he did a terrible job. That's all I can say.
Well, I love Bill Kunstler, but he was a lawyer. A lawyer of last resort means that he mostly loses his cases. It's rare that he occasionally wins one. But
Well, the thing was, lawyers cost $300 an hour, and most of them don't work for free, for anything.
no.
So when a lawyer shows up at a highly charged political case, he's doing it either to get exposure for himself, or he's doing it because it's an op, and he's gonna dig some rabbit holes and put some time bombs in them. And that's exactly the kind of stuff that Mark Lane was doing. See, Mark Lane devoted his life going after E. Howard Hunt as the primary culprit. And all through this case, we'll see.
Who is E. Howard Hunt for
E. Howard Hunt
people?
was a propaganda expert.
Right. He was
for
head
the
of
CIA.
He headed the CIA base in South America, right? He was.
He was moved around. He did
Vietnam.
operations. He did psychological operations. He was a writer. I mean, he wrote reports and stuff, and
books as well, like fiction books.
And he wrote fiction, and the CIA wanted him to be their Ian Fleming. They were never able to get that to happen.
Oh, right.
But he wrote a book about Cuba, and it starred Frank Sturgis.
And
And Frank Sturgis's name wasn't Frank Sturgis. He changed his name to Frank Sturgis.
Right.
Just so people would know.
I know.
I'm that guy.
Well, he's Cuban, and his name was Fernandez or something.
No, he's not Cuban. Frank is
I thought Sturgis was Cuban.
Frank Fiorini. He's
Fiorini.
Italian.
It was Italian. Fiorini.
He's a bar bouncer.
All right.
He's a bar bouncer.
Okay. You need a list to keep track of all these people. But, these are all the people whose names came up as having some connection. And, there's things but to me, one of the most amazing things was that in New Orleans, they had that building. And one side of the building was the right-wing attorney, Guy Bannister's office. And on the other street, the same building had a different address, was the Office of Naval Intelligence. And they were both
Guy Bannister was second in command of the FBI in Chicago. No, he's in charge. And he was in charge, and Robert Mayhew was his second in command. Okay. Mayhew was the guy who brought Roselli into the picture, and also Bannister is also he's a leader in the Minutemen. He's a leader in the John Birch Society. He's a leader in the Masons. I think he's very up there in the Masons. So
in the movie JFK, he's the guy who pistol whips Jack Lemmon. The Jack Lemmon character.
Yeah, that's a real scene.
Right.
But the thing was, though, see, Garrison was led astray by a lot of people, and Mark Lane is one of those people.
I see.
And the other.
So, what do you think? What gives you? So, you're saying that Mark Lane, who just died recently and is considered one of the great, conspiracy theorists, if you want to use that word, but people who really started to look at and research this case, and whose books Rush to Judgment, right? That's his book?
Well, that was a film and a book, and it's a mess. It doesn't really, they don't really penetrate the real story. Mm-hmm. And that's intentional.
Is that some connection with Mark Lane? Did some writing afterwards with Willis Cardo's
He married
Liberty Lobby.
Willis Cardo's daughter.
That's
his father-in-law.
A Holocaust denier and
he helped create the Holocaust denial movement. Right. He also suspiciously shows up at Jonestown, places like that where CIA ops are involved.
Right. He was in Jonestown.
He's showing up all the time.
But wasn't he there representing the congressman from California, Ryan, who was murdered down there? Also another assassination.
Right.
So that's interesting. I don't know. I'm going to read your book, right?
I'm saying Mark Lane did not do anything.
He seems to be close to assassinations.
He didn't bring justice in this case at all. Didn't even come close to penetrating it. He went after E. Howard Hunt, who was not a player in the game. Mm-hmm. So, and they diverted immense amounts of research towards E. Howard Hunt. And A.J. Weberman played a role in this.
Oh, A.J. He's
fingered Hunt as one of the tramps, the famous tramps photo.
The photo, right? And
it's ridiculous.
With the overlay
It's not Hunt. It's not Hunt. And the guy, the tramp that he's pointing to Hunt is.
Who are the tramps mentioned?
Chauncey Phillips Howell, I think, is.
But
the
were
old
they
tramp.
their role was they were three tramps, they called them, who were arrested shortly before the assassination, hanging around where some people said they saw the bullets originate.
Well, what happened was everybody rushed to the triple underpass because they knew the shooter was behind the fence, and the only way to get behind the fence was to go to the triple underpass. Now, when you got to the triple underpass, there's railroad tracks that go down, that go north. Right. And what happened is there's all these trains that were laid up there. And one of the guys who was in a tower, a little train tower, he saw three men dive into one of the trains. And he directed police over there, and they pulled these three guys out. And these three guys were not tramps. They were well-dressed, had nice shoes. You know what I mean? Chauncey's carrying a bag that he says has a walkie-talkie in it, because all the shooters had walkie-talkie men with them. Sure. So now, Woody Harrelson's dad is one of the tramps.
Oh, really?
So we don't know if he was actually one of the shooters.
He's in prison for
life for killing a judge.
Yeah,
but he was an assassin.
Yeah.
And so he could have been the guy in the knoll. You just don't know. I mean. And
I tell you, it's not like the average person knows this many assassins. Like, there's a lot of assassins around this story.
Well, a lot of people have tried to take credit for being the guy on the knoll. See, there's a guy in Chicago jail called James Files. He says, I killed him. I'm on the knoll. No. See, the guys.
So we only have 3 minutes left. Steve Hager, author of Killing Kennedy, The Real Story, and Killing Lincoln, the real story. So in the last 3 minutes, what should people take away from both these books and how they link together? What is it about America in this age of Trump right now where people are fearful that we have some sort of fascist slide in America?
Yeah, I think, it's always been a velvet glove hiding the steel arm of fascism. America's been like that for a long time. People just haven't wised up to it yet. But the thing to take away from this is that we live in a great age. All this material is now online. And if you can dig out of the snow and get down to the real core facts, you can see how they manipulate these situations. And they're very similar in the operations. When you kill a head of state and then you cover it up, there's very similar, things aren't that different.
Do you think this story will ever be true? Will somebody, because somebody who was involved or knows somebody who was involved, or there could be facts, hidden in a chest somewhere of drawers?
No, the facts are all there. The CIA has there's 7 people they've refused to release any documents on. And this year, in August, they're supposed to release all the JFK documents. So all the documents on these 7 people who are the key people like Bill Harvey and Shackley and all those people at JM Wave, that's getting released. But the thing is, know that you can go out there and find the truth, that you can do research. When we were in high school, you had to go buy books, you had to go find stuff. It was a nightmare trying to get good information. But now, the problem now is it's all buried with all this bullshit, the fake shit. But if you get past the fake shit,
the fake news, the alternative facts.
The reason they're trying to lock down the country is because the internet's opening up everybody to real knowledge, real wisdom. You want to be enlightened, you have to realize the CIA killed Kennedy and the radical Republicans killed Lincoln. These are both inside jobs. And America can't get straight, can't heal itself till it understands this and the media stops covering this stuff up.
Mm-hmm. What's your next, half a minute to go, what's your next project?
I have so many projects. I don't consider any of my books finished anymore. I have 11 paperbacks now, and I go back every couple of months and put new material in all of them. So the books aren't written in stone anymore. This is a living book, and when people contact me, which they do through my website, they tell me, Steve, you got this wrong. I'm right on it. I change it. I get it right. The next person that buys the book, they get that little mistake fixed. So I'm like, you can't, the books are bulletproof. If anybody finds a mistake, just let me know.
All right, Steve Hager, thanks for joining us on Let Them Talk. We'll have you on again, talk more about this, your next book. Thank you.